Dragon Ballers, if you're looking to buy Dragon Ball Super or One Piece sealed product, make sure to get 5% off using my link to Mystic TCG down in the description. You can also sell cards to them using their Facebook link, which is also down in the description. Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, I want to go over several budget alternatives you guys should be aware of, especially if you guys are trying to play Dragon Ball Super on a budget. Generally, I do think this is a very cheap game compared to the big three. However, some cards can run a bit pricey. This video is to kind of help direct you guys towards alternatives that might not be exactly the same in terms of power, but are good enough to get by until you decide to make that big purchase. I think I might have missed a few though, so if I did miss any budget alternatives that you guys are aware of, that you guys want to point other players to, definitely drop them down in the comments. Let's make this a community effort to help everyone out. But that being said, if you guys are new here, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss a video. And if you guys plan on buying any trading cards after this video, any trading cards at all, it does really help me out if you were to go down to the description and use my link to TCG player in the link tree. I really would appreciate that. Anyways, let's jump right on in talking about our first card. So we have SS4 Vegeta, Heated Fighting Spirit. This whole thing might be a little bit more fresh in everyone's mind because it was more recent, but this is like the overall of choice for wanting to snipe a big guy off the board. Problem is, cheapest copy of Vegeta right now is like 45 bucks, so if you didn't get to enter any of the online regionals, you might not have access to this card. But there is Dark Broly Heartless Berserker, which is generally the same thing, especially in any non-black deck. The only problem is this card combos for 0, although Dark Broly Heartless Berserker was super meta relevant before Vegeta came out, so the 0 combo cost never was really too big of a factor. So all in all, these are honestly the same card, and if you're not playing a black leader, you can really get away with just playing Dark Broly. Like, Dark Broly really is the same, except for that minor fact of having 0 combo power, but it's going to be so rare that you have to combo your Overwhelm anyway, unless you're in a really dire situation. So yeah, this is definitely the best way to save 45 bucks, is just play Dark Broly Heartless Berserker in your deck instead of Vegeta. All right, then we have Master Roshi Martial Master, which I really didn't realize until recently is a bought out promo. So for the non-foil copies of this card, it's going to run you about $15 a copy. And for anyone who wants to play Golden Frieza, that is kind of expensive. I was actually asked in my deck profile yesterday for Golden Frieza what some budget alternatives to this card might be. So one card I want to talk about is Frieza Malicious Streak. Now this card I am already playing in my deck as a one of, because it's playable off of Frieza's Call. However, if you don't have access to Roshi, you can play an additional copy of Malicious Streak. That is totally an option, and you have ways to put it back into your deck via Vegeta Surmounting the Impossible, which of course you're going to play in your Z deck, and that card allows you to put a card from your hand back into your deck, which will make it live for Frieza's Call, so you might be using both those cards to get Awakened in that case. You could also play SS3 Goku, The Last Straw, which is just one of many cards that attack and take a life. There's a Krillin that gains critical. There are other cards that, you know, gain other effects. The point is, you tackle them, you gain a life. Now, these cards are not the best, only because once you play these cards and attack with them, now you're giving your opponent a target to attack that isn't your leader, which could further stall your Awaken. However, if you're at 5 life as a result of Goku The Last Straw swinging, you can then use your Frieza Army Reinforcements negate to take your final life, go down to 4, and then Awaken from there. So it can be good contextually. And another upside to Goku is that this thing actually attacks Unisons fairly well. You can take 2 markers off of Unison early game if your opponent's not able to negate it. So even though it is a budget alternative, and I would say technically worse than Roshi, it does have some upside. Now, if you have access to maybe 2 copies of Roshi, let's say you want to spend 30 bucks, not the full 60 to get a playset, you could of course play like 2 Roshi, maybe 2 Frieza Malicious Streak, and then you don't really need Goku The Last Straw, in my opinion. Maybe you have access to 1 Roshi, then I'd probably splash the one of Goku Last Straw, or maybe 2 Gokus, just to have the consistency of drawing them all. Now we have Vegito Overwhelming Might. Now I want to talk about these 2 cards here on the screen, not as complete budget alternatives to Vegito, which are running about $7-8 a copy right now. They're not exact budget alternatives in the sense that they floodgate your opponent's turn like Vegito does, but the one area where these cards are exactly comparable to Vegito is when you're up against Broly Crown of Retribution in the red matchup. When you leave 2 energy open, you're vulnerable to your opponent's Broly Crown. And Vegito is a great way to get around that, because once you counterplay with this Vegito card, you no longer have 2 energy open, so your opponent is not allowed to look at your hand, so they basically wasted 1 energy on the Broly Crown. Borgos and Goku Steadfast Assistance are both cards that I played before Vegito came out. I played both these cards in my side deck at the World's Last Chance Qualifier for pretty much the exact reason, to basically get around the Broly Crown Retribution. Borgos is great because if your red opponent already has an established board, you can use Borgos' effect to tap whatever card they did not yet attack with. Steadfast can only rest the Broly Crown, but it does have the upside of being a blocker and drawing a card. So I valued both their capabilities in different scenarios, which is why I played both of them. Obviously now I'm just playing Vegito, but I did want to point these out as great budget alternatives for Vegito Overwhelming Might. All right, then we have Goku Faded Rival, which I was very surprised is like $7 a copy. Yes, it is an SR, but for a not so played color, I was kind of surprised it was about $7-8 a copy. But we do have Brienne de Chateau Elegant Fighter, which is less than $1 a copy. Now, where these cards are comparable is that they both cost 2 energy and allow green decks to pop any battle card ignoring a barrier. Other than that, Brienne does have way worse stats. She has half the attack power, no double strike, no barrier. She does have deflect, which in some scenarios could be somewhat relevant, but generally, Faded Rival's Goku is going to be the better card, except for one scenario in which you go first, because Goku Faded Rivals does require your opponent to have 3 or more energy. So one thing that actually Scott Dashy pointed out in his deck profile from a week or two ago is that he played 1 copy of Brandish Toe in his side deck because it allowed him to answer SS4 Broly SCR going first, which Faded Rivals does not allow you to do. So pretty cool tech there. So there's one scenario where Brienne is better. But yeah, if you guys can't get your hands on Faded Rivals right now, you could totally play this card and just pop anything ignoring barrier, still get that job done. Then we have Realm of the Gods Beerus Destroyed, which I was very surprised to see that even like the non-foil versions of this card are $4 a piece. This is a, definitely a staple card in blue though, so it does kind of make sense. One thing I want to point out as a budget alternative is Unbreakable Super Saiyan Son Goku. You could even look at this as a somewhat budget alternative to Ultra Instinct Kamehameha, which I believe even the cheapest copies of that are a lot more expensive than Beerus Destroys. However, that card is definitely less comparable to Unbreakable, so I didn't include it on the slideshow here. But yeah, Unbreakable, very comparable to Beerus because when used defensively, both cards cost 1 in the combo step and draw a card. The upside of Unbreakable is that it goes to Z Energy, which is definitely nice. I mean, that's why certain builds of Crimson played this card in general. Even though they also played Beerus Destroys, they also wanted to play Unbreakable because it would go to Z Energy when comboed. The only downside of Unbreakable on defense is that it doesn't offer removal that Realm of the Gods Beerus does, which is relevant in some matchups. But on offense, to be quite honest with you guys, there are a lot of times where I want a 1-cost 10k combo that draws a card, and Realm of the Gods Beerus doesn't offer that. Yes, it offers offensive removal, but that's only relevant in super niche scenarios. Unbreakable offering a draw on offense and defense when comboed is very, very nice. Just make sure if you're going to play a blue deck like this, don't put too many off-color cards in your deck because that's going to make charging in the early game a lot more difficult if you don't happen to draw a great handful of blue cards. But still, I think that Unbreakable, even in this beautiful rarity, is a great budget alternative to Realm of the Gods Beerus Destroys. Then we have Violent Rays, which is actually still sitting at a decent price considering how far less it's played and how it's been errated. So the text you see on the screen here is not exactly what it does anymore. Basically, take both those 20Ks and turn them into 30Ks. They floodgate your opponent out of attacking with a 30K or higher battle card or 30k or higher unison depending on the choice that you make. Now, one card I want to point out here is Master Roshi Martial Virtuoso. This is a card that I actually remember pointing out in my last budget video, which might have been over a year ago at this point. This card's a lot different than Violent Rays in the sense that it doesn't actually negate the initial attack and it requires you to have a unison in play, but it does not have a discard cost. And now that Violent Rays has been errated to only stopping 30Ks and higher, Master Roshi Martial Virtuoso actually has a slightly better niche of stopping 25Ks and above. So you are stopping technically more with Master Roshi as long as you can deal that first oncoming attack. And of course, if your opponent misplays, maybe swings with their leader first and doesn't combo into it, you can counterattack with this and then just use it as combo against your opponent's leader swing, which is probably going to be 15k to your 15k, and then you make Z energy out of it. So that's like the best case scenario for Roshi. I do think in a lot of scenarios, Violent Rays is better because it negates the attack, but I do think they're comparable enough to where Master Roshi is good in any red deck that actually plays a unison. Now we have Unearning Awakening and King Vegeta's Imposing Presence. Both cards are very similar. I think the cheapest copies of King Vegeta's Imposing Presence is probably going to be around $10-12. Now, Unearning Awakening, they both cost 1. Unearning Awakening gives you plus 5k, as where King Vegeta's removes 5k from every card that attacks. So in that situation, they're kind of the inverse of each other. However, King Vegeta's has the upside of being usable for free when you're at 3 or less life, as well as continuing to apply minus 5k to anything that attacks multiple times. So King Vegeta's is better against cards that attack, you know, 2 or 3 times in a turn. But Unearning Awakening, I think, is still comparable. We've seen tons of meta red decks play this card for good reason. It is a good supplement alongside King Vegeta's and Unearning Awakening. And the one upside to Unearning Awakening is that it actually negates the initial attack, which King Vegeta's does not. King Vegeta's does give minus 10 to the first card that swings, but it does not stop that initial attack. So if the battle card swinging first is too large, King Vegeta's does lose a bit of value, because you'll probably have to combo additional cards to get out of that attack, even though you activated the King Vegeta's opposing presence. Unearning Awakening does not have that problem, but there are of course downsides, but it is a great budget alternative to save you, like, you know, 40 bucks on a playset. Now we have a card that admittedly is not a budget alternative, but I didn't have any other video to talk about this, and I just think it's so cool where certain Sin players, which I haven't seen this in all Sin builds, but a lot of Sin players looked at my Trusted Lackey to replace the banned card Haze Shenron Gathering Evil. Haze Shenron, yes, it was broken for giving your battle cards crit during battle, but it was kind of fundamental to the deck in the sense of searching your Dragon Balls. My Trusted Lackey allows you the same thing, and it actually makes playing the SS4 Gogeta Unison Powers Connection a lot better without copies of Haze, because with only 4 copies of Oceanus, it was kind of suspect to play SS4 Gogeta Powers Connection, to only play those 4 cards for free, and if you didn't draw Oceanus, the card was kind of useless. Now with Mai in your deck, you are able to +2 play the Mai, search for a Dragon Ball, still get value, and still make Z energy. So yeah, I thought this was a pretty cool thing. Not necessarily a budget alternative, but just an alternative for Sin players if you are looking for something that you know, now that Haze is banned. I should have mentioned this a long time ago, but again, I didn't really have a video to talk about this, so I wanted to kind of just like slide it in here. And then I would be remiss if I didn't mention all the great budget SCRs we have. While these are not oftentimes the preferred SCRs in their colors, they're still super powerful cards that cover a lot of the color wheel. So blue, for example, while there is Gohan Beast and in some cases Kaioken Goku United Divinity, Baby Hachiek is still insane. Like, it still ends your opponent's turn, and most colors can't actually stop this thing from resolving, and it's going to run you about 20 bucks. So definitely get your hands on this if you want to play blue. Cell Zeno covers your green and yellow avenues, which is incredible. A game-ending boss monster as long as you make it to turn 5 and can put out 12 cost worth of cards on the board. Incredible, incredible card. And then if these cards don't cover whatever color or deck you're playing, there is, of course, Heroine's Lineage, which can steal a battle card mid-battle, and if your opponent's not expecting it, that can outright win you a game. If they combo all in on an attack, and you just say, okay, cool, Heroine's Lineage, take your guy, battle's over, I win the game. So it can actually get you some stuff with, you know, kind of like the sneak unknown factor, so to speak. But anyways, guys, that's what I got for you in today's video. Like I said, drop any budget alternatives you guys have down in the comments. It would be very helpful to everyone watching this video. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.